Live from Nature's Fair Markets in Vernon, BC, naturesfair.tv presents Karlene Karst. Now here's your host for the evening, Karen Marquardt.
Welcome. I think we're queued up there. So thank you for coming out on this wonderful winter night and joining us for this great presentation, which we are doing live. And we do have some people out in the audience, out in the Vernon audience and beyond, joining us because they're part of the Nature's Fair viewing audience as well. So thank you for being here and joining us. I will not take long. I'm just going to let you know that right afterwards we are doing a draw for this lovely basket up here, donated for the event. There's a book and there's some products in there as well. And just a reminder that tonight for your shopping pleasure, we have 15% off. That's 15% off all the regular price merchandise in the store for shopping after Karlene is finished with the presentation. So we're going to do the presentation, which takes about 45 minutes. And then we're going to do some question and answer, and we'll do the draw. And then you can shop, and we have lots of staff here to help you with questions and with product selections. With every product you buy from the line up front of all the products that Karlene is going to be talking about tonight, you will get a free book. That's her book tonight. So it's called The Full Fat Solution. Karlene Karst is a graduate of the University of Saskatchewan in nutrition, and she also is a registered dietitian. She's come here, left her little boys at home from Vancouver to join us, braved through the winter, and she is a national health expert. She's been on QVC, Canada AM, Access Hollywood, and is the author of several books. So we're really, really thrilled to have her here tonight. And as I mentioned to you, with any purchase from these lines, you will get one of these books tonight, and Karlene will be happy to sign that for you after the presentation. So please do enjoy the savings and the goodies tonight, and hopefully one of you will win this lovely basket before the night is through. And without further ado, please help me welcome from Vancouver, Karlene Karst.
Make sure that I have, is that good? Loud enough? Awesome, thank you. So nice to be here. Again, this is my second time. I think there's probably going to be a spot where I can't stand for all. It's maybe the hand moving. I know it's not the appropriate clothing for attaching it, but anyway, it's my yeah, this is going to create an issue here. It's my second time here in Vernon speaking at Nature's Fair, and it's been such a wonderful relationship with the stores over the last number of years, from my affiliation with Nature's Way for, gosh, almost the last 15 years. And now as I've embarked on my own brand of Sealicious fish oils, and I love Nature's Fair, and I think that everyone who has the opportunity to shop in the store and become more knowledgeable from the great staff, you're just so lucky. And I think most people feel that way when we can shop in a store such as this. It's wonderful. So thank you for having me. And they didn't tell me this is live. they probably don't tell anybody that, just for fear that the speaker goes, oh no, I don't know. Is this microphone going to be okay? I don't. Yeah, you're okay? Okay, good. So tonight we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about healthy fats and the whole concept of using fat to lose weight and help your body be in shape and manage blood sugar levels and all kinds of very timely things as we're in the month of January. Before I start talking though, I usually give a bit of a sorry at home. I give a bit of a background on how I got into the natural health industry, because as a registered dietitian, it's not very common that you see them become sort of authors and speak in a natural health food setting. But I was born and raised in southern Saskatchewan on a farm. That's where I grew up. And I grew up on a conventional farm. And of course, on that farm, my father used pesticides to spray the fields, and back then not thinking that that would have any impact other than onto the field and the crop that were being grown. It was interesting. A number of people in my family experienced some ill health, and my father ended up passing away from cancer at a very young age. And the kind of cancer he had, the oncologist and I'm not even holding it that time. The oncologist back in the 1990s said that the type of cancer he had was likely related to pesticide exposure, and of course that we know certain environmental estrogens and pesticides are related to autoimmune diseases and certain type of cancers and cardiovascular disease, and kind of the list just goes on as we start to learn more about the harmful effects of pesticide exposure. And I myself was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and I always say that I was headed down a slippery slope of prescriptions and over-the-counter medications to help deal with the pain and the inflammation. And I started to I graduated from university, and I started to work in this industry kind of by fluke, really, but started to research some things about natural anti-inflammatories. And I came across this interesting research on something called borage oil. I don't know if you've ever heard of borage oil before, but it's an omega-6 plant, and it's rich in a special fat called GLA. And there was all this research about its benefits for arthritis. So I thought, you know what, it can't hurt. At this point, I was using about 8 to 10 Advil a day, and I was in my late teens, early 20s at the time. So like I said, headed down a slippery slope. And you know, I would say within about 3-month time period, I couldn't believe the improvement in how I felt. And I don't know if it was necessarily like a focused, oh, each day I'm feeling better. It was more of all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I'm noticing that I'm not experiencing the same type of pain that I was before. I wonder if it was from the incorporation of, you know, the borage oil, if it was, that has something to do with it. And outside of my Flintstone multivitamin, I had never used a supplement in my life, or my chewable orange vitamin C's that I think every mother used to give with the bowl of Fruit Loops, and then you get the Flintstone multivitamin and the vitamin C. And that was really my aha moment. And I think that we're all on a journey of health, and so many people become aware of organic food and natural living from a place of need. You've either experienced your own health crisis, or you've become frustrated with traditional medicine and perhaps just aren't feeling like you're getting the answers that you should be getting. And so people start venturing into the world of the health food store. And I really truly believe that if you give your body the proper environment, you can truly heal yourself. And I'm sure that you've experienced it as you've started to make changes in your own health and in your food and what your family is eating. And just earlier, Kim and I were having a discussion about how too much gluten, too much wheat in the diet can make you feel very lethargic. And so there's all these signs that we see of how nutrition does impact how you feel every single day. And what you put into your mouth every day does influence how you feel. And it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And so I think that's one of the first tips that I give to people who are starting to make some improvements in their health is that, you know what, start slow, and the slower you start, the more apt it will to become a lifestyle, rather than a, I'm gonna go on the wheat-free diet tomorrow, and I'm gonna get rid of every type of wheat from my diet. I'm not gonna touch it again. I'm gonna stop drinking coffee and stop drinking soda and stop all of this as of tomorrow. And you know what, by next week you'll probably be slowly back into your own ways. And so over the last 15 years, it's been a journey and a progression, and an exciting one. And I love to continue to learn, and I find that doing these type of events is kind of like therapy in a way, because I get so many great questions from people and hear other people's stories, and I feel like it's such a great sharing exchange. So I obviously have some slides to go through, but this is your time. You come here on your own free will to listen and learn, and we so much appreciate that, because the time is the most valuable thing that we have, and the fact that you come and share it with us here tonight means a lot. So please feel free to ask a question. And so we know, of course, being the month of January, and we appropriately named this talk Getting Fit with Healthy Fats, because, as I said, it's kind of a timely topic, in that most people's New Year resolution has something to do with getting healthy. And for most people, it does involve some sort of weight loss or some type of change in their body, or perhaps it's even just incorporating more exercise. I certainly noticed yesterday at the gym, even I was there over the lunch hour, which is kind of an odd hour to go to the gym, but it's what works. it was packed with people. And I was like, yeah, give it a couple weeks. I'll be able to get back on my machine that I normally use. But I mean, it's a good sign that people, this is what's on the top of their mind. And for a good reason, because we know that we're not getting any healthier as a country. Unfortunately, our statistics are dismal, to say the least. And I don't need to read statistics off to you for you to know. All you have to do is kind of look around. I think in the West Coast, we are a little bit healthier, a little bit more in shape than certainly other parts of Canada or other parts of North America. But overall, yes, our country has a massive weight problem. And of course, along with that weight problem comes a couple chronic diseases that we know to be diseases of lifestyle. Does anyone know what those would be? Diabetes, type 1 or type 2? Type 2 diabetes, and what else? Cardiovascular disease, right? And certain types of cancers. Okay, so those would probably be in the top 3 of chronic disease that we know with certain lifestyle changes and improvements that we can prevent, okay? And I think that that's the silver lining in that. So DNA is not a destiny. Just because your family member, your father, or your grandfather had type 2 diabetes doesn't mean that you're gonna have it as well. So there are a lot of different things that we can do. And it's interesting when we look at the whole weight crisis that we're dealing with, because 15 years ago when I was studying to become a registered dietitian, the low-fat diet was what was popular. And it was low-fat cookies, chips, crackers, yogurt, dairy, everything was low-fat. Of course, they take the fat out of the food and they replace it with what? Sugar, right? So we didn't realize, though, that all that extra sugar would eventually lead us to where we are today. So it wasn't the fat in the food that was causing the problem, it was the sugar. So we've become a lot more sophisticated and knowledgeable on this topic. Now we know that it's not just how much you weigh on the scale. So good news for a lot of people who were obsessed and addicted to weighing themselves and knowing what that number is. Now it's more about where on the body is the weight stored. Is it stored in your legs, your hips, your thighs, your abdomen? Where is it? And we know that carrying weight above the waistline in the abdominal region is what's far more dangerous for our health. And so that's good, because you don't need to weigh yourself anymore. Yay for that. What you do need to know, though, is your waist circumference. So for men, we're looking at about 35 inches or less in the waist. So you can get your tape measure out tonight. And where do you measure yourself? Below the belly button, above the hip bones, kind of in between there. That's considered to be your true waist measurement. So just keep that in mind. Anything greater than 40 for men, 40 inches, does increase the risk of those chronic diseases that we mentioned. For women, we're looking at 32.5 inches or less. Anything greater than 37 increases the risk, type 2 diabetes certainly, and cardiovascular disease. So really important that we keep that in check, okay? And we know that this, what we call belly fat, is the most dangerous type of fat on the body. And the reasons we have belly fat, there's a lot of different reasons. You can't just say that there's one thing that you're doing or one thing that you're eating that's contributing to the belly fat, because it really is multifactorial. We can look at combinations of hormones, and even within the hormone category, my goodness, there's probably at least, I can think off the top of my head, a half a dozen hormones that, if you have an imbalance of, can cause you to gain belly fat, okay? So obviously cortisol, which comes from having too much what in your life? Stress, okay? So we know that to be one of the belly fat hormones. There's also another belly fat hormone, something called adiponectin, and we know that as we age, this particular hormone tends to drop off. When it drops off, we start storing fat in the midsection. Over the last decade, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I just started gaining weight in my stomach, and I made no changes in my diet, no changes in my exercise, and I'm just storing fat. And it was like all of a sudden. And what we know this to be is really a complex relationship with that adiponectin hormone. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later and some of the natural strategies to help deal with that. Certainly blood sugar imbalances are huge. So that is actually one of really the key, I guess, things that I would do as part of my nutrition mantra, is really trying to keep your blood sugar levels very stable throughout the day. And so we're going to look at some of the food strategies to ensure that you're doing that. Inflammation, whoa, okay? The buzzword of, I would say, the last decade is inflammation. And this systemic inflammation is rampant. And you want to know something? It's core and central to so many different disease conditions, whether it's your digestion, depression, heart disease, obesity, okay? Carrying too much fat in your stomach is considered to be an inflammatory disease. Carrying too much fat there does secrete very, very strong inflammatory chemicals, okay? So when you lose some of the weight in your stomach, guess what? Some of the inflammation drops. You know what? If I was to ask my mother or people older than myself, and I would say, when you were a kid growing up, did anyone ever talk about chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia? Okay? No. Not that maybe it didn't even exist. It was just that nobody dealt with these kinds of things. Now I know so many people who are literally debilitated with an inflammatory type condition. So where's all this inflammation coming from? Where's it coming from? Diet, okay? It's coming from our food. It's coming from, and again, not just one thing that we're doing in our diet, but a combination of different things, okay? Certainly, toxic refined oils are a big contributor. Excess sugar, high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners like aspartame, okay? Hydrogenated oils. There's all kinds of different things that we're doing in our food that are contributing to the inflammation that we're experiencing in the body. That is then in turn causing us to gain weight, okay? Estrogen fluctuations, okay? Environmental estrogens. Do you know excess estrogen causes you to gain weight, especially in the midsection, okay? When you reduce the midsection, guess what? All of a sudden the estrogen levels start to become imbalanced, okay? It's a really important strategy for perimenopausal, menopausal women. So there's so many different factors that are causing us to gain belly fat. And as far as our food, well, we could probably talk for the next 3 days about our diet and go through almost everything, because really there's a lot of work to be done in this particular area. So again, what are some of the implications of carrying too much belly fat? Well, we talked about a few of them, but the list just really continues to go on. I mean, think about if you carry too much weight. And you know, I had when I was expecting with both my kids, I kind of had, not that that's the same thing as being overweight for your whole life, but basically when you have an extra 40 pounds on your body, you notice it, because guess what? I couldn't sleep at night because I was uncomfortable, and you can't breathe properly, and I couldn't walk up my stairs without feeling winded and sweating by the time I got to the top. And my hips were hurting and my knees were hurting. And you know what? It was a very eye-opening experience to see how that can affect you and how it can affect your energy levels and your ability to sleep. So it was the closest thing that I have to that, but I completely get it. So when you read the science and you read some of the implications of carrying too much belly fat, it completely makes sense. So fat cells really are the key, and so our whole focus tonight is talking about fat. And so it's interesting, and I like this slide for a couple different reasons, because again, when we're talking about weight, it's less about how much you weigh on the scale. Remember, we talk about that, and more about where the fat is distributed, okay? And we know that when we are trying to lose fat, we're essentially trying to shrink the size of the fat cell, because we're trying to get rid of the amount of fat that's stored inside of them. And our fat cells have this unending ability to just keep expanding and expanding and growing and growing. And if you've ever watched any of those shows on TLC network where they do the extreme dieting shows, or even The Biggest Loser, I think it's called, where they start with people that have, through poor diet and lifestyle, ended up being 300-400 pounds. And you wonder how that's possible, because when you look at pictures of these people, for example, 10 years before that, they were maybe 175 pounds, and now all of a sudden they're at 300 pounds. How's that even possible? And we know that our body and our fat cells just have this ability to just keep growing and growing and expanding and growing outwards, okay? From poor diet, from lifestyle, and a combination of some of those other factors we talked about. So it really does become about how much fat is stored inside the fat cell. And so I kind of like this example here, because it kind of shows the shape of what happens. And when you start to lose fat on your body, you'll essentially start to shrink. And so using your clothing size as a good indicator, as an indicator or a measure, is actually a good idea, because you want to maintain lean muscle but you want to shrink the fat cells, okay? So your body essentially becomes smaller. And that's when you see these success stories of people, oh, I went from a size 18 down to a size 10. Their body is essentially shrinking. And that's what we're looking for. And so if you see, this is what would be considered to be a quote unquote normal fat cell in these white shaded areas. It's actually a cell like an ultrasound, I guess, if you will, of the cross-section of the back, okay? So it's looking at the fat cells around the back, and the vertebrae is right there. And so the white shaded areas are the fat that's deposited in the cell. So you can also notice the shape of the cell as it exists right there. Kind of tight, kind of looks like a little mushroom sort of shape, if you will, a little bit on the compact side, not very much distributed, not very much fat in your fat cells. Of course, we all need to have fat on the body. It's important, does a lot of important things for us. The difference is this would be considered to be an obese fat cell. And you can see here the amount of white fat that's found inside this cell, much more than the above diagram. And you can see also, what do you notice about the shape? It's compacted and it's grown outwards, right? So instead of being a nice, compact, tight shape, like you think of somebody who's lean and in shape, this is completely the opposite. It's spread outwards. So again, when we talk about this ability of our fat cells to just keep growing and expanding, this really shows it right here. So again, the focus of our dietary strategies and our lifestyle really needs to be, how can we reduce the amount of fat that's found inside these fat cells? Okay? In my opinion, and from, sorry you guys. Sorry at home. I knew that this was going to cause a problem. Here, let me get this going again. So in my opinion, insulin resistance is really one of the underlying strategies, and really figuring out what works for your body, because what works for one doesn't always work for the other. But there's a few different things that I believe, from a combination of research, science, and then practical. And I think nothing beats that practical experience of when you work with clients and you help them achieve their weight loss goals. What is it that helped them get to that level? And from what I can see, insulin resistance is really one of the key underlying factors. And so what that really means is, how can we get our bodies to use our blood sugar more efficiently and to keep our blood sugar levels stable on a daily basis, okay, throughout the day? This is really what we're looking for. And does everyone know what insulin is? Yeah, everyone knows? Okay, it's an important hormone that gets released by the pancreas in response to what? Sugar, right? Carbohydrates. And don't get me wrong, you need to have carbohydrates in your diet. It's important. So I am in no way an advocate of a carbohydrate-free diet or an excessively high-protein diet. The kind of carbohydrates that I advocate people eating have what in them? Fiber. That's the answer, fiber. Do you know most people eat maybe 5 to 8 grams of fiber a day? Do you want to know how much we actually need? 35, right? And then we wonder why we have digestive issues, right? Wonder why people experience bloating, gas, constipation, irregularity. It's because we're not eating food that provides any fiber. So when you think about carbohydrates in your diet, think about fiber, and that's what we really need to focus on, okay? And so insulin gets released in response to carbohydrates in order to help push the sugar from the carbs inside the cell, okay? And when the sugar goes inside your cell, that's how you can talk and breathe and move and function and think. Have you ever tried to go on a carb-free diet? Has anyone ever tried it? How's your brain? If you have no, it's not good. It's mom brain fog at its worst. And I think since becoming a mother, actually my husband comments a lot. He's like, your memory is like really bad. I'm like, it's because I'm a mom and I'm sleep deprived. And you know what? If you multiply that with no carbs, you're gonna be in a real bad state, okay? And so you need glucose, you need sugar in your diet to help you function. It's finding the right type. And so when that sugar gets delivered into the cell, that's how we perform our daily functions, and that's how our brain functions. So what happens though, in most cases, is this. So we have something that's called a high glycemic load. So basically, how most North Americans eat, okay? When you go to a restaurant and you're mortified when you have pasta and they bring you this like huge gigantic bowl, and you're like, really, is this considered a portion size? That's how most people are eating, and that's the amount of food that most people are eating, which is partly why we're in the situation that we're in. But that would be called a high glycemic load, okay? So a big white pasta dinner with some marinara sauce on it, and then garlic bread to boot, and you know, the whole carbohydrate thing. So that's a high glycemic load. And what happens is, essentially, this is the yellow line here is your blood sugar. So your blood sugar goes up in response to all the carbohydrates, and then your insulin has to go up afterwards. And it has to spike even higher than the glucose in order to bring and transfer the carbohydrate into the cell, okay? So over time, these high insulin peaks, and we're not talking over 3 days, we're talking over 30 years or 40 years of eating this way, because remember, in your 20s, you're invincible, and you don't need to sleep, and you can eat whatever you want, and you never gain any weight, and you don't need to go to bed at 9 o'clock at night, and you can function very, very well. It's in your, I would say, most people start to notice the effects of kind of a poor diet and lifestyle mid-30s to into their 40s is when it really starts to become more apparent and more noticeable. And so certainly these repeated high insulin peaks over time basically causes your insulin receptor sites on your cell to slow down. And your receptor sites on your cell are basically like a lock and a key. Okay, so it's like the receptor site is the lock, and the insulin, the hormone, is the key that has to open it and turn it on and allow the sugar into the cell. Well, over time, it just continually gets bombarded, and eventually the lock is very, very rusty and it won't open it anymore. Okay? And that's when you go for your fasting blood sugar test, and lo and behold, your fasting blood sugars are at a 9 instead of a 4.5. Okay? Because they should be between about 4 and 7. Okay? And I'm sure everybody has had their fasting blood sugar levels tested, right? Yes. So that is essentially what happens. And so it's really this whole diet-induced insulin resistance that's really one of the key underlying features of carrying excess belly fat, and also the development of type 2 diabetes. Okay? And so our after-meal glucose response should look like this. So when I talk about some of the strategies that I've seen to be effective, and even though they may sound boring, they're tried and true, and it's easy. And this is the great news, is that it doesn't have to be a fancy diet. It doesn't have to be a trendy thing. It comes back to what makes sense, okay? And what makes sense to me, and what makes sense from a science perspective, is that you eat, number one, because you have no idea how many people are trying to lose weight by basically starving themselves, okay? That's one of the biggest things that I see. And I'll meet with women, and I'll ask them what they eat for breakfast. Well, I don't eat breakfast. You have to eat breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And one of the most important things you need to have at breakfast is what? Protein. Because without protein, your metabolism can't get going, okay? You need to have protein at breakfast to jumpstart your metabolism. Otherwise, you will never, ever, ever be able to lose weight. Okay? It's one of the most important nutrients we need that time of the day. Then you need to feed your body regularly throughout the day. And you need to eat a combination of protein, healthy fat, and fiber throughout the day, and preferably those three things together, so that your blood sugar can respond properly, okay? And when it does so, this red line here is what we consider to be the ideal blood sugar response. So we get a nice slow rise in blood sugar. Then over the course of about 2 to 3 hours, your blood sugar slowly starts to come down, and then what do? You eat again. Okay? And you eat the combination of the carbohydrate with the fiber, the protein, the healthy fat. And then again, a nice slow rise, nice slow fall. And essentially, your blood sugar response looks like rolling hills throughout the day. That is one of the most effective strategies for weight loss, for the prevention of belly fat, for controlling blood sugar, okay, and for long-term prevention of these lifestyle-related chronic diseases. What's happening to most people is this green line here. So people wake up, they're stressed out already first thing in the morning because there's a lot to do, okay? I used to think when my kids were not in the preschool age and the day kind of seemed a little bit boring for those of you moms who have had young kids, and you kind of wake up like, oh, what are we going to do today? It's a long day in front of us. But then quickly, before you know it, you're in this panic where by 8 in the morning, every single person needs to be out of the house, dressed, teeth brushed. So when my dentist says I should be flossing my kids' teeth, I'm like, you know what, sweetie, we're just really lucky that we get the teeth brushed in the morning, that everybody eats, that you get lunches packed, that you're in your car to where you need to be. And it's rushed. So most people are grabbing breakfast on the go, or they're eating bowls of cereal with not much to sustain that. And so they're having these massive sugar spikes first thing in the morning. And so by the time you sit at work in your desk, or your child starts its first hour of school, the blood sugar is already starting to crash, okay? And it's starting to crash, and it's starting to drop well below what's ideal, okay? So then what happens is you feel like what? Ravenous, shaky, irritable, moody, and you're craving. And what are you craving? Sugar. Why? Because your blood sugar is so low. It's a natural response. So it doesn't matter about willpower, and you're not a bad person because you feel like reaching for the muffins and the cookies. It's just this is what your body is telling you that it needs, okay? So in order to avoid that, we really have to work on combination of those things. The healthy fats, okay, the protein, which both of them help to slow down the release of sugar from the carbohydrates that you're eating, okay? Obviously consuming less refined sugars, and along with that I also say less artificial sweeteners. So if you're somebody that's still consuming and using artificial sweeteners, that's usually one of the most important things that I look at in your diet is just say no. Just say no to artificial sweeteners and figure out what it is that's going to work better for you and your family, that you're going to enjoy the taste of, but it's not going to contribute excessive amounts of sugar to the diet, okay? Consuming smaller meals more often. Okay, it might feel like you're eating all day. Well, you probably should be essentially eating all day. Smaller amounts of food regularly through the day. And there are, I would say, 70% of people eat basically one very big meal a day. Okay? And then we wonder why we can't fall asleep at night, and why we feel horrible, and why we have no energy, and then why we can't get up in the morning because we're so lethargic because we ate such a late meal and so much at the end of the day. So we really need to look at improving that. Now, when it comes to fats, this is probably, and what I basically base the entire full fat solution book on, is the knowledge that we know our entire body is built out of fats, okay? We know that our body is built out of millions and billions of cells. Cells are built out of membranes, and membranes are built out of fats. So if you've had a poor diet, and you've had a lot of unhealthy fats in your diet, whether that's contributed from fast food and processed food to hydrogenated oils or toxic refined oils, or even just oils that you use a lot of in your cooking that are not appropriate for the type of cooking you're doing. So for example, how many people are cooking and frying with olive oil? Okay, that would be a good example of something that we should look at changing, because olive oil is a wonderful oil. I highly recommend extra virgin olive oil in your diet, but guess what? It's better used for after your food is cooked, or as a garnishing oil, or low to medium heat at best, at most, okay? So when you heat an oil beyond what it's supposed to be heated, for example, that was something we would call it smoke point, you can actually create toxic chemicals, essentially, that create free radicals in the body, which are very, very dangerous. And they do a real number on your cell membrane structure. So in order to improve that, it's a matter of figuring out the right type of cooking oil. And you might find that after you start perhaps making some changes in this area, you have 4 or 5 different oils that you use in your home. Something that you supplement with, whether it's fish oils or flax oils, something that you use for high heat cooking, like what? Which one? Coconut oil would be a great one. So coconut oil can go up to about 385 degrees. Coconut oil, I have to say, out of all the fats, out of all the oils, it's probably been the one that has gone through the most controversy. Because when I was in university, literally, our professors told us that like heart disease is imminent if you use coconut oil and tropical oils in your diet. Now, it's like for weight loss and immune system and cooking and making your pancakes and, you know, putting into your smoothies and high heat, medium heat. It's moisturizers, skincare products. I mean, coconut oil is everywhere. And so we know that what was thought of 20 years ago is very passé and very old school thinking. And that we need these healthy fats. And they actually help, because they work at the cell membrane structure, they actually help that lock and key, those insulin receptor sites, work better. Okay? So when your cell membrane structure is created from unsaturated, from healthy fats, it helps your body, number one, use nutrients more efficiently. It creates a very fluid cell membrane structure that allows nutrients to be absorbed into the cell, and it also allows the insulin receptors to work more properly. So now you can tolerate, and your cell structure can handle the carbohydrates that you're eating. Okay? So remember we talked about protein. How much protein, and I get asked this all the time, well, how much protein do I really need? Well, if you think about it, an egg is about 5 grams of protein, so you can use that as your benchmark. And I love eggs, and I think that if you're consuming organic free-range eggs in your diet, you can eat eggs every single day. And I said that because I can't believe that's another thing, the whole controversy of eggs and whether or not you should have them and can have them and whether or not they cause heart disease or not. They are fine, okay? Organic free-range eggs every day are a wonderful addition to your diet. They're the perfect protein, essentially, okay? And what else can you eat at dinner in the evening and at breakfast in the morning? Because when you're short on time, there's nothing that beats making something with eggs in the evening, because you can do the vegetables and you can do all kinds of things with it, so it's great. Recommended basically 50 to 70 grams of protein per day is what we recommend. If you're trying to build muscle, of course you can increase that amount, or you can figure it out based on how many pounds your body weight is if you're within the ideal range that you're looking for. Hopefully we're all moderately active people, or if you're not, you're going to become moderately active. Actually, I think everyone in this area is very active. I heard the ladies saying that they went cross-country skiing this morning, which I think is so wonderful to start your day like that. So you can do about 0.5 grams per pound of body weight in terms of the protein. Okay? When it comes to the fats, the essential fatty acids is what we're talking about. Again, these are something called polyunsaturated fats. What makes them essential? Does anyone know? What does the word essential nutrient mean? Right, your body can't make it, so you have to get it from your diet. The problem with our diet historically has been these type of fats are basically in short supply, okay? Or the kinds of foods that they're found in isn't what people are eating, okay? So when we look at what provides healthy polyunsaturated fats to the diet, green leafy vegetables, okay? Nuts and seeds, walnuts, okay? Pecans, almonds, fatty fish like sardines, anchovies, mackerel, salmon, okay, halibut, not even as much as what the salmon would be. Cod would provide some, shrimp provides some. So a lot of food that people just aren't eating on a regular basis. Okay? Avocados are great for you as well. Those provide the monounsaturated fats. So really when it comes right down to it, most of us aren't getting enough of these healthy fats in the diet. So the body is having a very difficult time responding and having a very difficult time building that healthy cell membrane structure. So some of the ways the body responds is, first off, dry skin, hair, and nails is often one of the first signs of a deficiency of these healthy fats. And so we see this with people all the time. They're complaining about their skin being always dry, that their nails are always brittle, that their hair's falling out and it doesn't shine. That's often a sign of an essential fatty acid deficiency. Next to that, though, certainly any kind of heart issues or joint issues, pain and inflammation, all of these different things are indicators that there's just not enough healthy fats in the diet. So really figuring out what kinds of things that you can change in your food and what kinds of foods you can add to your diet to increase the amount of healthy fats is a really important strategy. Second of all, even when you do that, and even when you eat healthy fats in the diet, chances are you're not eating enough of them. And that's why the whole category of omega-3s from supplements has just exploded in the last decade, Ever since basically the American Heart Association and Heart Association groups recommended people consume omega-3s from fish oil because of the benefit for heart health. And so we know that supplementing with omega-3s is one of the most important nutrients that you can supplement with. Actually, it's what I would call a foundational nutrient. How many people use fish oil? All right, pretty much everybody, that's good. So that would be a foundational nutrient. Second would be what? Does anyone know another foundational nutrient? something, if I had to list 3 things that I think everybody should use, it would be number 1, omega-3s from fish oil. And I believe that we need a minimum of 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA per day. So in order to figure out, you need to take a look at your labels. So you need to take a look at the supplement facts panel. It'll tell you EPA and DHA, and you add it up, and you make sure you're taking the right amount, because dosing is everything. Okay? We have incredible nutrients available to us, and you have no idea how many times. My husband's been a naturopath for 25 years, and he said you have no idea how many patients come to his clinic. Yeah, I tried that and it didn't work. And he's like, usually it's because they're not using enough of them. And whether that's probiotics, or whether that's their vitamin D, or whether that's the fish oil, whatever the case may be, it's mostly because we're not using the right dosing. So dosing is key, and dosing is everything. It's better to take 3 nutrients or 2 supplements and use the right amount of it than to take 10 and not use them properly, okay? So really, really important. So foundational nutrient number 1 would be omega-3s from fish oil. Foundational nutrient number 2 would be what? Probiotics, okay? Remember, all disease starts in the gut, and the digestive system is the caveat of all healing. It really, truly is. And so often you might think of a certain condition, and I use my husband's practice as an example because he has a large pediatric percentage of people that come to him. So mothers come with their children, they've got focus issues or tension, or they've got skin, or they've got eczema or something like that. So for example, a mother will come in with a 6-year-old boy, eczema on the hands, a little bit on the face, dry scalp, and she's like, I need a cream for his hand because he's got this eczema. So he kind of does a bit of a diet. Okay, well, first you have to take a lot of the sugar out because he's eating too many carbohydrates. Second of all, you need to make sure he eats yogurt every day, and not the sugary kind of yogurt, but this is the kind that we recommend, yada, yada. And then you got to take probiotics and fish oil, and he should be good to go. And they're like, no, but I need a cream because he's got the rash on the hand, and I need to put something on it. I'm like, no, no, no. If you take the probiotics and the fish oil, that'll go away. Really? Okay, well, so they do it, and they do it for 2 weeks, and they come back, they're like, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's gone. The eczema is gone. And that is probably one of the best examples, and children respond so well to supplements because their little bodies, their cells replicate so quickly that usually within 2 weeks of these strategies, and they see a massive, massive improvement. And so remember, disease starts in the gut, and keeping your digestive system in good check is such an important thing for your overall health. So probiotics would be number 2. And then number 3 is always debatable, but I would say it's vitamin D. That would probably be my 3rd, or you could switch the order if you prefer. I just am the fats person, so I always do the omega-3s first. But always comes back to the fact that those healthy fats are building your whole body, okay? And so just when you think you're taking a lot of fish oil, take even more. Because the more you take, the better they work. Okay? Remember, it's all about dosing. Second of all, they work on the inflammatory system in the body. They really, truly, that's where the crux of almost all the research with omega-3s especially is their ability to heal inflammation. Okay? And remember, we talk about all the different disease conditions that have an inflammatory basis to it. And we know that the omega-3s can help with that. And guess what? Some incredible research that really had from when Lorna Vanderhaeg and I wrote a book in 2004 on fats called Healthy Fats for Life. And then the Fat Solution is essentially an update to that. And this area, I have to say, I can't believe how much new research was in this area, and talking about the ability for omega-3s to help burn fat in the body. Okay? So eating fat can help you lose fat. And it does this in so many different ways, and really comes back to the whole improving your cell membrane structure, okay, improving your body's ability to utilize insulin and those insulin receptor sites to work. It increases something called leptin. Has everyone heard of leptin? Again, another hormone. Remember we talked about it in the beginning. There's probably 6 to 12 hormones that are involved. Leptin is something that makes you feel full. Okay? And it's a hormone that gets secreted from the brain. And again, it's not about willpower, it's not about anything like that. It's about this complex relationship that exists between what we call these hunger and these satiety hormones. There's a hormone called ghrelin, and that's your hormone of hunger. You can remember that from the grrr, the growling of your stomach, making you feel hungry, gets released from the intestinal tract to signal to your body that it's time to eat, okay? Leptin then needs to be released to tell your body it's full, okay? So that your body gets to that space and you go, I'm feeling good. And the research shows that omega-3s from fish oil actually help your body to secrete leptin. So you will have a faster full response, if you will, because your leptin levels are being secreted in proper amount, okay? It'll help decrease inflammation. Remember, we know that inflammation is known to promote weight gain. Remember that abdominal, that deep omentum fat that surrounds the organs is very pro-inflammatory in nature. So when you reduce the belly fat, the levels of inflammation in the body come down, okay? Improving blood sugar control, of course, with healthy fats. And we talked a little bit about the receptor sites. So, of course, natural triglyceride fish oils is my recommendation. I'm a big believer in liquid fish oils. And if you're traumatized from your childhood where you were using rancid cod liver oil, forgive me. But it's come a long way, okay? So they really have improved the ability to manufacture and, of course, flavor and make fish oil taste and smell pretty delicious. And the reason I like liquids is because I believe they're better absorbed by the body, number one, that it's hard to swallow all these different soft gels. And if you're taking a combination of different things, it's just hard, and it's hard to get the proper dosage in the soft gels. So for example, a teaspoon of oil is about 5 soft gels. So it's a lot easier to take a teaspoon of oil than it is to take the 5 soft gels. And so the compliance goes up. And when the compliance goes up and the easeability of it goes up, then you're going to experience the benefits and you're going to reap the benefits of it. So remember, every day 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, not just 1,000 milligrams of the fish oil, because it's not 100% omega-3 EPA and DHA, but 1,000 milligrams of the actual fatty acids. Now, if you have inflammatory conditions, elevated triglyceride levels, belly fat, obesity, arthritis, pain and inflammation, certainly going up to 3,000 milligrams per day of EPA and DHA is recommended. And this is my baby, along with my babies, who are on the bottle. And this is the new Sealicious fish oil, which we're going to let everybody try afterwards and demo. And of course, it's in the gift basket. But it's exciting. It's exciting for me. It's after developing products for half a dozen companies over the last 15 years, it was exciting to do my own. So it was definitely a passion. Thank you. Definitely a passion project for me. And it's been really exciting. So the full fat solution plan, I go through this in the book, so everybody can check that out. One of the things that I really believe is kind of a little bit hard for people to change. First of all, if you don't do dairy or consume dairy, that's totally fine. The recommendation for the full fat dairy comes in when you're eating dairy. So the point is to avoid the low fat and the fat free dairy in favor of full fat. And you will thank me for this, because you'll be like, wow, this is the way yogurt is supposed to taste when it's the full fat. And I'm talking the 11% Greek yogurt, thick, creamy, delicious, tastes wonderful. That is the way it's intended to taste. Fat is very, very, improves the mouthfeel, the texture, and we also know that when they've removed the fat from dairy, they're removing something called trans-palmitoleic acid. Now, you don't need to remember the name of that. I just found this in the research, though, over the last 5 years, the research studies have focused on the missing nutrient in our diet. And one of the reasons why you've heard that dairy and calcium can help your body lose weight, I think it's a little bit deeper. The connection's a little bit deeper than that. And when we look at this and we see that when this particular fat is present in the food, it actually protects against diabetes. There's a 60% lower incidence, and cardiovascular disease. And we also see decreased statistics with obesity, so less body fat, lower triglyceride levels, higher HDL cholesterol, which is our good cholesterol, lower C-reactive protein. There's all these indicators in the research that this particular fat that's found in dairy, milk, yogurt, cream, cheese, etc., has all these important benefits to our health, which comes back to everything we've been learning. Don't change the food. Keep it the way nature intended it to be. Don't remove nutrients from it. It's there for a reason. Nature knows what it's doing, and providing these important nutrients just has remarkable benefits for the health. And for the longest time we thought, and we heard, and we've been told by all kinds of people, and I myself actually believe this, that too much saturated fat in the diet will cause heart disease, or that there was a link to heart disease. And actually they found this to be untrue, and this theory was proven to be untrue. And in 2010 they reviewed 21 different studies, and they concluded that there's no significant evidence linking saturated fat with heart disease. So another yay that we can consume the dairy and not be so concerned about that, and definitely enjoy the full fat dairy. There's another fat that you may have heard of before, something called CLA, or conjugated linoleic acid. Definitely found in dairy products that come from animals who have been allowed to graze and grass feed and eat a primarily grass diet. When they consume grass in the rumen in their stomach, they convert the fats in the grass into something called CLA. And then we eat the meat and drink the milk and eat the butter, and then we get CLA. And there's a very interesting correlation when we saw significant changes in the way livestock and animals are being fed, and the decrease of CLA and the increase of obesity. Because CLA is known to be a fat to break down fat in the body. That's what it's for. It's for something called lipolysis. It's for the breakdown of fat in the body. And so when you remove that from the food that you're eating, well, all of a sudden there's something missing that before was there helping the body to basically digest and break down fat. So when we see these obesity statistics and we see the changes in our food and some of these nutrients that are missing, it makes sense, and it kind of helps to start to connect the dots. You'll also have probably seen CLA in the weight loss section of the store because it probably for the last 15 years has been a fairly steady supplement when it comes to weight loss. It's not, I don't think the results are dramatic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's what I would call steady Eddie. And the reason is because when you use it and you use it in proper dosing, it helps the body to break down fats. Okay? So these are just some more of my nutritional recommendations, which we've pretty much already discussed today. So keeping on with the whole belly fat concept, and I'd just like to go through one very interesting study of which this product called SafSlim, I don't know if you've seen that before. If you've not had the opportunity to sample it, I encourage you to try it. After, of course, you taste the C-licious first, because having the SafSlim first, then the C-licious, it just tastes weird. So you have to do the fish oil first, and then the SafSlim product, and it's yummy. And you're honestly gonna say, you mean I get to lose weight with this product, really? Can I put it on ice cream? Can I? No, it tastes very yummy. And essentially what it is, it's an emulsified safflower oil. And it was clinically studied at Ohio State University on a group of postmenopausal women who were type 2 diabetic and, of course, carrying all their weight in their stomach region and having a very difficult time losing it for multiple reasons. I think the age, the postmenopausal, the diabetes, all of these different variables were kind of in play, causing them to gain all this weight in the stomach and not be able to lose it. And so essentially the researchers had hypothesized that linoleic acid found in safflower oil is going to help them lose their belly fat. And so they took these women and they divided them into two groups. One group got CLA, the nutrient we were just speaking on, and the other group got the SafSlim, the high linoleic safflower oil. And essentially what they did after 16 weeks, they saw that these women lost a 6.3% average, so a little bit higher than that in certain cases, of their belly fat, okay? Just from incorporating the linoleic acid safflower oil into their diet. Now, the other interesting thing they saw was a 20% increase in adiponectin, that hormone, the belly fat hormone that we've started to learn more about over the last number of years. And we know that this adiponectin is a hormone that gets released from your fat cells, and it helps to promote insulin sensitivity. So remember, making those cells more appropriate, more responsive to insulin is an extremely important strategy in maintaining a healthy weight. Okay? So the fats are remarkable at their ability to improve cell membrane structure and to improve insulin sensitivity. Okay? And when you increase adiponectin, it starts to mobilize that stored belly fat. And so essentially that's what the SafSlim product is built on. Okay. Now, the other interesting thing was they focused really on the marketing of the Safslin product for belly fat, but I was actually even more impressed by some of the other benefits they saw in the studies, from decrease in C-reactive protein. Does anyone know what C-reactive protein is? It's a marker of inflammation, and actually known to be a much more sensitive, better marker than cholesterol, which I'm happy that we're moving away from the cholesterol discussion, or triglycerides or anything thereof for cardiovascular disease. So C-reactive protein is really a marker of inflammation. And they found that after the 16 weeks, C-reactive protein actually dropped by 17% in these people. Why? Because they're losing their belly fat. And remember, belly fat is pro-inflammatory. Okay? So if you drop the amount of belly fat you have, the levels of inflammation in the body come down. Okay, so it's incredible, and really the metabolic benefits of this product, if you're type 2 diabetes, perimenopausal, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistant, this offers wonderful, wonderful benefits. And the way you use it is 2 tablespoons a day, so 1 tablespoon 30 minutes before you eat, times 2 times per day. And like I said, it tastes delicious. And this product's been on Dr. Oz a couple of times. It's been on the cover of Women's World. It's on QVC all the time. It's just, honestly, it's been a real marketing coup, and I think it's because people are so interested in the topic of belly fat. And then when it works, well, that's a bonus. And I encourage you, if you get time to ever hop online and you have some free time, but there's a website called myrebody.com, and it just goes through some amazing testimonials of people that feel like they've really changed their life because of this product, because of the results that they've got from it, and how much better they feel and more energy, and the transformation in their shape and their body. And it's really kind of enlightening. And they have online chats, and it's like the whole, you know, Weight Watchers of our industry. It's a kind of interesting group. Another great product, and you can try these after, and they taste delicious, is something called the Hunger Chews. So if you're somebody who overeats and feels like you're gaining weight because of stress, anxiety, emotions, boredom, whatever the case may be, you're an emotional eater, essentially, there's a big percentage, especially women, who eat because of emotions, okay? We're tired, we're bored, we're sad, we're frustrated, we're depressed, we're lonely, whatever the case may be, we're snacking and we're eating, and mostly snacking on sugar. And if you look at the history of something called saffron, historically in Middle Eastern populations and Mediterranean cultures, it was used to help treat depression and mood. And so this is a clinically studied product, again, on Dr. Oz, and think what we want of that. But when he promotes products, it helps because there's no better marketing tool, honestly. So anyway, this product was on there twice. First of all, back last spring with Montel Williams, and him promoting it as a way to help with the snacking, okay? Just that desire and want to snack. It was just on again in December, and it was on with a doctor who's talking about it as an emotional improvement, so part of the happiness boosters prescription. And I know January is a tough month for a lot of people, and I think this is why they did this particular episode prior to the beginning of January, and it was giving people strategies to how do you improve your mood. Okay? There's a lot of different things that we can do with nutrition and with natural health to improve our mood. So this is based on that research, and it's based on a clinical ingredient called Dietary. So they're known as the saffron chews. And they taste quite yummy, and 2 chews a day or 2 capsules a day is very effective at controlling snacking and overeating. And in fact, in the women that they studied, women were in their 40s, and they were mildly overweight, not as overweight as the group of Safslin, but they found that they saw about an 80% reduction in their craving for sugar. And it's quite fast acting. Like, you'll notice within a few days that you'll be like, hey, you know what? I don't think I'm craving sugar as much as what I was. It's extremely fast acting. And that their desire and want for snacking dropped by about 50% from incorporating the saffron into their diet. So some really nice research and some really nice testimonials on saffron for snacking. All right. So I think that was pretty much at the end anyway. Are there any questions on belly fat, weight loss, inflammation, fish oils? Oh, natural triglyceride fish oil? Great question. So it gets, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Anyway, we'll just leave it at that. Natural triglyceride fish oil. So there's a couple different forms of fish oil. So there's something called ethyl esters, there's something called triglycerides, there's something called cod liver oil, and basically it's the way in which the fatty acids exist, yeah. And so the triglyceride structure is the natural way it sits in the fish. So when the oil gets extracted from the fish, they basically don't change it. So they don't alter it at all. And as a result, it's the most stable kind. And really when it comes to fish oil, stability is such an important concern because there's so much rancid oil. And people who have had negative experiences of the burp back and the fishy aftertaste, it's mostly because the oil has started to oxidize. And so when you're incorporating natural triglyceride oils, it's the most stable of all the fish oils, and it's going to remain stable the longest out of all the other types. And they also find in the research it's the most absorbable and the most bioavailable form. So that's, yeah, it's much less processed. They basically don't do anything to it outside of cleaning up the PCBs and removing the mercury and the toxins and the heavy metals, but the actual fish structure itself, they don't change. So yeah, they're distilling it usually with either steam distillation. So steam, basically they pass steam through the oil and the vapors of the toxins tend to rise above and they just kind of collect them that way, and that's the safest, most gentle method of distilling the oil. So the less you can do to the oil in terms of the processing, the more stable it will be long term. And you'll know when your fish oil has gone rancid, you can tell. It's got a very off smell, and you should use it up usually within 2 to 3 months of opening the bottle. And always keep your fish oil in the fridge to help preserve and maintain the stability and less oxidation. Good question. Yes?
If you're eating fish 2 times a week, you
yes.
really need to take the extra.
100%. But that's wonderful. If you're eating fish 3 times a week, that's fantastic. And that's honestly a minimum diet recommendation is fish 3 times a week. So yes, you still need to use the fish oil supplements in addition to that. Yes, sir.
What about flax oil instead of?
What about flax oil?
As opposed to fish oil, yeah.
If you're a vegetarian, flax oil is great. You can't compare flax oil and fish oil because flax oil contains something called alpha-linolenic acid, which is an omega-3, but it has to be metabolized through the body into the longer chain fats, EPA, and then DHA. And that metabolism in the majority of people is very slow. So what the research shows is anywhere between 0.2% to 20% of that ALA will be metabolized into the longer chain fats. So the metabolism is just very, very slow. And it's slow because of different diet and lifestyle factors that we're all exposed to. So if you're really looking for the EPA and DHA, use a direct source that comes from fish oil. And your body then doesn't have to go through the processing and the metabolizing of it. Yeah. Yeah. But I think flax oil is good. I think flax seeds are even better. And I love incorporating flax seeds into smoothies and on salads and baked goods. And there's just so much that you can do with them because then you're getting the fiber and you're getting the protein because flax is an amazing, amazing seed. And I think to just take the oil from it and just use that is kind of, we're missing out on a lot of the other benefits. So if you're going to incorporate flax, I encourage the ground up flax seeds. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? I think I had missed a hand. Yes?
Protein should you have in the eating?
How much protein?
Yes.
Usually between 50 and 70 grams. And it depends on your activity level and what your fitness goals are. I mean, if you're really into gaining more muscle, obviously you need more protein to help build the muscle. But for general weight management, health, 50 to 70 grams per day usually does the trick. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
Your fish oil, should you take it before or after?
Fish oil take before or after, usually sometime around when you eat. It's always a good idea to have food present. It helps with the absorption of the fats, helps minimize any kind of unwanted side effects. Not that if the oil is clean, there shouldn't really be any side effects, but usually most nutrients you take when you eat. So you'll see me at a restaurant with my baggie of vitamins. Like people are looking at me like, what is she taking? My Ziploc baggie and handfuls of supplements. So generally speaking, something around when you eat. Yes?
What about around your other supplements?
Yeah, great.
Space them apart?
No issue. No issue. For the most part, not really. For the most part, you can take most things together. There doesn't seem to be, I mean, think about when you eat.
Iron, they want to kind
Yeah, the iron might be the exception to the rule. If you're using an iron supplement, that would maybe be an exception to the rule. But most speaking, I mean, if you think about the foods that we eat, they should have a combination of almost every nutrient, right? And so when you think about the supplements, it's really no different. You can, and your body knows what to do with, you know, vitamins and minerals and fats and proteins all at once. And your digestive system should be able to handle the dissemination of that throughout the body. Yes, Karen.
Could you comment, Karlene, on using the C-licious for SAD?
Oh, for seasonal affective disorder. Absolutely. And you know what? With the omega-3s, remember our brain is built of fat. Okay, so 60% of your brain is fat. Now, just like the other cells in the body, obviously if it can be made from omega-3s, it's happier, essentially is what they show. Not to mention that depression is very much viewed as an inflammatory condition, and as well, there's such a correlation between the improvement of mood and omega-3 fatty acids, and it all has to do with building the cell membrane structures in the brain. And so there's a tremendous amount of research that looks at seasonal affective disorder, bipolar disorder, clinical depression, and the use of high levels of omega-3s, up to about 3 grams of EPA and DHA. And vitamin D and omega-3s are, in my opinion, two of the best natural things that we can do to improve SAD.
So how much C-licious would you take?
That would be a tablespoon a day.
A tablespoon?
Yeah, a tablespoon a day. And then the vitamin D, 2,500, 3,000 I use at least. I can't believe, you know what, vitamin D is an incredible nutrient. There's this book, I'm trying to remember the name. I always forget the name of this book for some reason. I think it's like the Vitamin D Cure. It's got this big, nice hardcover, red and white. It was so fascinating. It was one of the most interesting nutrition books I ever read, because I didn't realize that the depth of the research and the importance of vitamin D for the body was what it was. And so it was very enlightening. I certainly increased the amount of vitamin D that I was taking after reading that book. And definitely with our mood and our emotions, it plays a really significant role. And then research shows when you take fish oils, other nutrients are absorbed more efficiently into the cell. And they even find that there are certain pharmaceutical drugs that are absorbed better and work better when there's omega-3s present. And it all has to do with building a cell membrane that can absorb and absorb nutrients. So, yeah,
so this
great question.
This oil is more omega-3?
Yeah, it's all omega-3.
Okay,
yeah.
Because I read somewhere that you shouldn't be taking omega-6s because you get too much of that.
Right, so it's a good comment. She read about the omega-6s and that we get too much of it in our diet. And that's true to a certain extent. And in fact, the research shows that we probably get 20 to 30 times the amount of omega-6 than we do omega-3. And most of that omega-6 is coming from processed food, toxic refined oils, and a lot of red meat, shellfish, for example, especially from meat that is not coming from the free-range organic sources. So, for example, if animals are eating grain and eating corn, like a lot of animals are, then that is what's building up their meat, okay? And then we eat that, and that's very pro-inflammatory and loaded with omega-6. So meat was never intended to have the level of omega-6 it does. It's all because of the changes in the way that we're feeding our animal. And so on the omega-6 side, there's a caveat to that, and that is evening primrose and borage oil and a fat called GLA. And if you remember, that was one of the first fats that I ever used. So it's kind of like omega-3 and then GLA, if you were going to supplement with the omega-6, because it does have some tremendous benefits for hormones, skin, hair, nails. For female health, GLA is a wonderful supplement. So that would be the exception to the GLA, to the omega-6 rule. Yes?
What about juicing and then losing fiber from a vegetable when you...
Oh, good question. Juicing and losing, I know. You know what, I used to juice. I had an amazing juicer. And, you know, I would think of that every time when I have my bag of fiber, essentially, after I've juiced it all. I'm kind of like, wow, what a shame, really. And then I got a Vitamix machine. Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. It tastes different, for sure, the juice versus what you make in the Vitamix. But now I don't feel so bad because now I'm still getting all the fiber. So you're right. The juicing, fresh juice, I mean, the enzymes and the vitamins and minerals, wow. I mean, it is like you could have 10 cups of coffee and you're not going to equal the energy and the clarity you're going to experience from a nice, big, fresh juice. But you are missing out on the fiber.
All the fiber.
All the fiber. It's all going away. because you're just extracting the water and the juice from the vegetable or the fruit. So if you can keep it there, if you're a juicer, and you can switch to a blender or some type of machine that allows you to keep the whole food, it's far superior. And then it really becomes it kind of becomes a full meal. And I'm able to use that as the basis of my breakfast now. Before, when I was just juicing, there would be no way, I would be too hungry. But now when you're keeping, you know, the full carrot and the full spinach and kale and everything is staying there, I mean, you're so satisfied. And a lot of these vegetables have protein in them. So for example, if I put half of a papaya, that's like 5 grams of protein right there. And avocados have protein. And a lot of these fruits and vegetables we don't realize actually have protein in them. So when you're using the entire thing, you're just allowing yourself and your body to get all the nutrition from the food. So it's a wonderful thing. Honestly, I can say within the last couple of years, that's been like the next extension of my health journey, is I took a raw food, it's not really a cooking class because you don't cook anything, but a raw food class, and it was like, it was so interesting, and it really inspired me, and it was like I went from here to here just by incorporating some of those things. And I found like, wow, I'm actually eating so many more vegetables, and it was good. It was really good. Yes?
You mentioned cooking with coconut oil, and careful about the
Heat,
olive oil,
yeah.
the heat oils.
Yes.
Any others besides coconut oil?
Grapeseed oil is excellent. I like grapeseed oil is another nice higher heat cooking oil. There's something called camelina oil. I don't know if you carry camelina oil in the store. Have you heard of it before? It's kind of like the new kid on the block, and it's a pretty amazing oil. If anyone watched The Dragon's Den, the show The Dragon? Okay, the girl that started the camelina oil business, essentially she's from Saskatchewan. Her name's Natasha, and she's a lovely, charming girl, and she grew up on a farm like myself. We have very similar stories, and her family farm grows camelina, and it's an oil seed crop, and so you can take the seed and you press it for the oil, and it's an omega-3 oil. So it's often known as the sister to flax. But the difference is that you can heat this oil. And it's such a remarkable oil because it's loaded with vitamin E. So the tocopherols that are inside the oil actually protect the oil and allow you to heat it. So that's the one unique thing about it. And so there's some unique studies on it. The second thing you can do with it is, unlike flax, when you use camelina, they actually show increase of you saw it coming, didn't you? They actually show increase in EPA in the blood. So the omega-3 that's found in fish oil, when you use camelina, they see an increased level of it in the blood, which there's no other plant that shows that. So this camelina, like I said, nature knows what it's doing. It's a very unique oil. And I actually write about it in my book because I was so fascinated by the research on it. And so this brand of camelina oil is called 3 Farmers. And it comes from her dad and her uncle, and it's her family farm, and now she's turned this into a business. Anyway, she went on the Dragon's Den, and they were so fascinated by it that they gave her a good chunk of money because you need money to market these products, right? So anyway, if you ever see camelina oil, it's another nice high heat cooking oil with tremendous health benefits. It's awesome, very cool. Okay, well, I know we have a gift basket to draw, so I want to get Karen to, did everybody fill out their name? On the ballot. It's a smaller group tonight, so the odds are in your favor.
Is everyone in the draw? Yes? We have everyone in the draw?
Everybody's in. So in the basket, there's a bottle of Sealicious, a bottle of Saf Slim, the Hunger Chews and the Hunger Caps, and a book. Yeah.
If a person's obviously trying to lose weight, maintain a muscle mass, can they take the Saf Slim and the Sealicious?
Oh yes, 100%, absolutely. They are completely different from one another. So the omega-3s from the fish oil are going to have additional benefits to the Saf Slim. So the Saf Slim is all about losing belly fat. It has nothing to do with any of the other things that we talked about with the omega-3s. And so the omega-3s are going to further enhance the ability, especially with cell membrane structure, decreasing inflammation, insulin receptors, sensitivity, etc. So absolutely. One's omega-3 and one's omega-6. Yeah.